to be a good front-facing neighbor and company in town.
Okay,
And
thank you.
what type of, I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman, what type of, government or, industry standards that you have to follow? Are there
The
any?
industry standard for this, there's only a couple things that apply. One, because we're not bringing any trash or anything like that, we have a little bit of liquid in the bottles that come in there, but it's very little. Most of us put ours in the recycle bin are empty. The kind of things that are containers, most people want everything in the container. They want the entire bottle of Coke or wine, whatever it is that they've had. There's air quality is the one thing we had to look at with the kilns eventually, because we're heating that foaming agent up, but all it is creating bubbles in there. We're not cooking, burning off, doing anything like that. We're literally making something warm enough that it creates a bubble in the foam, and then that hardens up so the glass sticks to itself. And that's it. But there's no cooking or burning or any new chemicals or anything presented. That was the first thing we checked. This meets all the requirements of German and Austrian, which have much higher standards than we do, but we wanted to make sure that we did that. So we went, as part of our due diligence, do we need to do anything? Because once again, we want to be good neighbors. I wouldn't want to live next to a facility that was putting out any noxious smells, sounds, or things like that. So we're trying to be a good neighbor.
Are there any ADEQ regulations that you're required to adhere to?
There's just an air quality that we've got. We've shown them what is coming out at what that oven produces with the heat, and that was it. And they said it's well under the requirements.
Mr. White?
ADEQ, Department of Environmental Quality.
Is that what it's going to look like?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a lightweight rock.
I'm going to make a comment. I've known Mr. Little for a long time, and if y'all went out to look at his facility that he works out of, y'all would be impressed. He goes to the extremes. He's got solar, it's first class. It's actually, to me, it's going to be an asset to your community because he doesn't do anything unless it's first class. And I've seen it, and y'all can go look at his office. Y'all will be totally impressed. He's not the run-of-the-mill. I don't want to criticize the other people, but he just does things a little bit more than he probably should. But I have nothing but respect for him and his entire family, and I think he would be an asset for y'all. It's not going to be anything like the ladies before said. It's just not going to be. I wouldn't mind it being by my house. Okay, so and we need him to speak from up here.
How far do you live from the Rose City area?
Well, I kind of grew up in the Rose City area, but I live in Lakewood.
Hold on now.
I hear the trains.
If you'd like to speak, come forward to the microphone, please, and give us your name. Thank you, Mr. Corey. Yes, ma'am, please come up.
Good evening. My name is Marilyn Credit. I live in Whippoorwill Lane, 6625 Whippoorwill. And you were saying that, I know he's a family man. We're not disputing that. But this has nothing to do with our community. I know you're saying that look at his office and check this out, and you have great respect for him, but do they live in our community? That's the question. And you know, there's a lot of other places that you all, well, I mean, when I say you all, the plant, let me say it like this, recycling plant, and I didn't mean to use a statement you all. The recycling plant can put they can go to other location like Lakewood, down the road, but not in the residential area. And I think, and you know, I'm not an expert in certain things, but I think that it will decrease the value. We just don't want it in our community. We are family people. We work hard to build the little bit that we have, and we try to do what's right. We have children and grandkids that's in the community, and we just don't think it's a good idea. I just don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I know you mean well. I know you're bringing jobs into the community or into the city. I know you're doing that, and that's good. We appreciate that, what you all are doing. But I just don't think it's a good area for Valley subdivision and I forgot, Valley and where I live. Delta Line, excuse me for that. I don't think it's a good idea. I know that you all are concerned about jobs, and I know, they're probably got a good deal. Okay, yes, sir. They got a good deal for the land, but I just think that you need to take it elsewhere. It's not good
Okay.
for the community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, any other comments from the commissioners?
Just one.
Mr. Chambers?
Can anyone tell me how many persons you will employ? At full build out of that map right there.
The glass process will be 30, and it'll be about 18 months to 2 years. We'll have another 30 on the plastic side, so about 60 employees, and that's over full shifts, during the day. So, but roughly, on any given time, about 20 people on site.
Okay. Thank you.
You're saying both shifts, but you just previously said there won't be a night.
Ma'am,
I'm sorry, I apologize.
thank you. Any other comments? Yes, please come to the microphone and give us your name.
My name is Willie B. Burnett. I live at 322 Pisces Court, which is, the factory is going to be right behind my house. I retired 2 years ago for this to be a residential area, not to be rezoned for business, because once you rezone it for business, that means anybody can come in. So that's my point for it, and the property value will go down. So that's my point.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. White?
Go over the zoning deal that she was discussing on, that it's a conditional use and not a rezoning.
This is.
Rezoning, yeah, this is a
Oh, I
rezoning.
thought it was conditional use.
Next one is conditional.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners?
Okay, I see it. Thank you.
Okay, on the application, please call the roll.
Yeah, the one
Did
young lady
someone
right
else
there.
like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come give us your name.
I stay right there at the corner of Whippoorwill, which is 6500 Whippoorwill. I have 3 children, and we worry about the tearing of the road of the traffic. So, I mean, if they do put that there, which I don't want them to, but if they do, it's gonna create potholes, right? So will that road be constantly fixed if that happens?
Are you referring to Campbell Road?
Correct.
They're actually expanding Campbell Road and they're adding on to it, making it wider.
They're adding on to it?
That will be in this is 6A, B, and C. 6A is rezoning, but B and C will consider site improvements. And one of the things the city requires them to do is to widen Campbell Road, to make it wider.
Okay, and I came a little late, but how far back is that going to extend from 165? How far back will that go into the wooded area?
What is the depth of the
Is
project?
the depth of it, like how far back will that go? So if you're starting at Campbell Road in 165, how far of a stretch will it go down?
Talking about the
Campbell?
half-street improvement?
I'm sorry?
Are you talking about the half-street improvement that they're doing?
She's asking the depth of the project itself, the back property line of the project. How deep is it?
It's roughly 240 feet north on Campbell Road from the rail.
Okay,
Okay, so
From here
that's Campbell Road.
to there is roughly 240 feet.
so it'll go down Campbell Road about 240 feet,
From the existing rail, that's
Yes.
not from Bockham Pike.
yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes, okay, thank you.
thank you. All right, one more. Yes, ma'am. Give us your name, please.
Marie Hollowell. I have property on 6504 Whippoorwill. And I know you mentioned that there's going to be a buffer on the west side, but the houses on Whippoorwill back up to that property. Will that buffer remain there, a natural buffer of those trees? No, it's,
Whippoorwill is to the north.
100 acres of buffer from us. We're on the very south side of 165. I think that, I don't know what well, I can't speak for the developer on that.
okay. Okay. And then he also mentioned that there were gonna be no chemicals. I know they have to submit an application, I guess, with wastewater as far as any chemicals that are being used. Are we sure that nothing hazardous will be used in the area?
Yes, ma'am. Whatever they will need to use will have to be submitted for approval for them to be able to use it. It would have to be permitted for that if there is one that pertains to any chemical they might use.
Thank you.
Pardon me?
Can I just make one last statement?
Quickly, yes, ma'am.
Can I stand here?
Yes, ma'am, come on. Okay. I have been overruled by the attorney.
Thank you for that, being very considerate. We have enough problem on Whippoorwill and Valley subdivision and Delta Lund subdivision. We got airplanes, I know I'm sounding loud, excuse me, planes almost like landing. We have enough problem. We don't need anything else coming in to derail us or have a problem. We have enough problem with the plane. We live close to the airport. So I just wanted to say that you all be very considerate of us. You know, the hardworking people that have retired and worked hard all of their lives. And we, you know, and senior citizens, just be mindful of us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. I said one more, but we'll let you come. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Myrtle Crucial, and I own part of 612 Saunders Drive. I am definitely opposed to this plant coming in that area. How many shifts are they going to have? You know, most businesses have a morning shift, an afternoon shift, and a night shift. And if those cars and employees are going to be coming up Campbell Road, that's going to change our sleeping pattern. And we're going to have lots of noise with all these cars and whatever trucks. Because now most people are driving these big SUVs and trucks, and that's going to bring a lot of noise into our area. We worked hard for this area. And we worked hard for our homes, and we retired. And there's something that we don't want over there. Now, they can build further down 165. There's industrial down there, not where our houses are. But there's vacant land further down 165 if they want to go all the way down. They said they're going to come down 165 and bring traffic up there. So how come they can't build down there and not build where we are living? Our children, we have children in that neighborhood, and they go to school and they play outside. And if you have people coming to work all hours of the night, that's going to keep us awake. And I don't think that's fair to us. And we didn't get hardly any information to say that they're coming. I am a retired nurse practitioner, and I know when you say you're going to do these recycling plants and glass, there's got to be some type of pollution that's going to mess with people that have asthma, and they're going to mess with people that have allergies. So they can't tell me because it's going to have to do some kind of powder or something. And I've seen that before. I have seen that in different places. So I am definitely opposed of this being here because there's other places that they could build and not off of Campbell Road. Thank you so much for giving me this time.
Thank you, Ms. Crucial. Yes, ma'am. Have the residents in the area been properly notified?
They met the planning commission requirements with regard to notification. A little over 100 notices were mailed out, certified mail, return receipt requested as required by your bylaws.
Excuse me, hold on, ma'am. The regulations say that you must be notified of any property that is possibly going to be rezoned if you are within 200 feet of the property. And she said that they had mailed out over 100 notices of people within 200 feet of that property. So they have been properly notified. Thank you. Alderman Taylor?
Councilmember Taylor of Ward 2. Just a point of clarification. Can you guys make the map a little larger and please point out that the biggest portion of this development is already zoned for what they're trying to do. So they're just trying to, uh-oh. So just this little piece, right, at the end of it is the piece that they're rezoning. If they really wanted to do it, all they have to do is move that building up behind the other buildings, and it's already zoned to do what they want to do. They could do it anyway. Yeah. I understand, but I'm just saying, the property is zoned for what they want to do. All they're doing is trying to make it a better development by rezoning in this other piece. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Well, I can talk to you about property values all day long, but I don't see how it's gonna affect the property values.
okay. Please,
I just wanted to make
sir.
sure that everybody was on the same sheet of music as to what was actually being rezoned.
thank you, Alderman Taylor, for the clarification. Okay, I believe that everyone has had a chance to speak and to give their views on this. So if there are not any more comments from the commissioner, we'll call for the vote.
Can you put?
This before today is a recommending body. If it passes, the city council will be notified that this body recommended. If it fails, the city council will be notified that this body did not recommend passing. We are strictly a recommending body only. That's all this hearing today is for the rezoning.
I don't know. You like that, Sean?
Okay? On the application, please call the roll.
Banks? No. Chambers?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Pierce? Yes. Wallace?
No.
White? Yes. And Chairman Clifton?
Yes. Your application did pass. You can see Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what you can do next. Now, this recommendation that will come from this body will have to be presented to the city council by an alderman. And the city council will have the opportunity to vote on this to see whether this rezone passes or fails. So you can go to the city council with any concerns that you have after this. Okay, thank you for your participation.
Hold on.
Now then, item number 6B, conditional use. We have, on the conditional use, we have heard this, or any other comments from any other commissioners on the conditional use of this? Mr. Chambers?
Yes, sir. I think it's important to explain that what we just did is recommend rezoning a portion of the property that the applicant wants to develop into I-2. And then within I-2, he's not allowed to do glass recycling, but glass recycling is a conditional use, and he's requesting a conditional use permit to allow him to do glass recycling in I-2. Rather than rezone the property I-3, he wants to go for a lower industrial classification and get a conditional use permit. The conditional use goes with the land, so if he were to sell the development, they would still have a conditional use to operate their development. I just thought that had to be explained. That's why this is continuing. The next part will be 6C, which is the applicant's proposed development plan. So there's actually three parts to this. One is to rezone it, Then we'll hear whether or not to grant him a conditional use to actually use the property as he wants to, and then we'll vote on his site plan. So for those of you who are not familiar with how we do business in the commission, that's a clarification.
On 6B, conditional use, are there any comments from the commissioners? On the application, please call the roll.
Banks? No? Chambers?
Point of information, Ms. Fields, the chairman did not ask for any public comment, just comment from the commissioners. Are we following proper procedure?
Since this is subject to a public hearing, even though it's the same property and the same development, I think that Mr. Chambers is correct, just so that we fulfill the public meeting requirements of this body. I think you need to ask if there's any public comment on
Okay.
this. Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Prior to voting, let's just
Yeah.
pretend we didn't vote and
Right, thank you.
On 6B, conditional use, hearing no comments from the commissioners at this time, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? Mr. White?
I do have a comment. What we're voting on, and Mr. Chambers did a good job on it, but what we're voting on is now we've recommended for it to be rezoned. Now what we're doing as a body is we're saying we're gonna let you rezone it, but it's gonna have some rules on it. And so, and I don't know if y'all have this, but it has conditions that we're requiring them to do to make sure that it protects the community, is what we're doing. So we're voting on, now we're gonna let you do this, but there's gonna be some rules involved. And so now what the council is doing, or not the council, the planning commission is doing, is applying those rules. If we don't apply the rules, that's not good, is what it amounts to. Then they can do whatever they want to do. But right now, we're putting rules on it. So I just want to be clear on that. So when you come to the podium, that's what we're talking about, is the rules. And you got to come to the podium.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Yes, ma'am.
Just wanting to be sure that I'm getting
Your
this.
name again, Ms. Brown.
Lynette Brown. Just wanting to be sure that I'm getting a clear understanding that in this conditional, although we're voting, it's been recommended for them to do the recycling, which will go to the committee. But at the same time, if they should decide we don't want this, anybody else can come in and utilize this property in any way they deem necessary or deem fit. Is that what this conditional is saying?
If they don't build the project, then there's no conditions. So if the conditions are only if they build it. So someone can't come in a year, if they don't build this and if someone comes in 2 years, they'll have to go through this exact same process. So just because you're approving it now, the conditional use now, doesn't mean that it will apply if the project doesn't get built. That makes sense? So it goes away. If this doesn't happen, the conditional use will go away.
Mr. Chambers?
yes, Ms. Brown, also to clarify, if the conditions we're passing here, the first one is that they have to have a preliminary plat and have to comply with everything under the city's site plan review ordinance, and that is a whole book, okay? The second one is they have to have a rezoning from the city council and approval of the conditional use. The third one is all storage facilities for fuel, raw materials, products, and uses of similar nature shall be enclosed in an opaque fence around the property. Number 4 is full buffers are required next to any residentially zoned land. Number 5 is the hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're allowed to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but outside activities, anything going on outside is limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So they can operate inside their building 24/7, but outside, they gotta be at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If a dumpster is added, the dumpster has to have masonry screening. This is to avoid any vermin and things like this getting in their dumpster. All signs have to comply with the sign ordinance, and of course, the standard boilerplate that we always include, that is, they have to comply with all federal, state, and county and city requirements. The applicant understands that failure to comply with these conditions may result in loss of conditional use and/or loss of business license and/or removal of their electric power meter. And then 10, a business license has to be issued after planning staff confirms that all of these requirements have been met. Now, what this means is if they build this facility and they get everything they want, zoning, conditional use, plat approved, site plan approved and everything, and they build a facility and they sell it 5 years from now, the buyer has to comply with all of this too. It doesn't go away. This goes with their land. Not only that, if anyone up here or anyone out there has a great idea and wants to add another condition, we can do that too if we think it's warranted. City council can add and subtract from this list also. But they're the ones that approve this. We'll recommend it, but they're the hammer, so to speak.
And then who will regulate all of this to make sure that it's being done?
You want the honest truth?
Exactly, nothing but.
We are a self-regulated society. So I'm just telling you, if you see.
I want the honest truth.
I'm telling you the truth. And Mr. White will look me right in the eye and go, yeah, you're right. We are self-regulating. So if you see them operating before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m., you call code enforcement or planning department and tell them you saw a violation. But, then they'll investigate. But no, city staff is not going to stand out there and ring a bell at 7 a.m. and they can commence outside operations. That's not going to happen. But in terms of regulation, that's Mr. White's biggest beef is we're self-regulating.
Again, that goes back to our concern that once the facility is there, then there's no regulation to it, so therefore they'll do what it is.
Don't construe my remarks to say there's no regulation. That's not what I said. Yes, Ms. Fields.
Okay. A lot of times when we are enforcing our ordinances and our zoning laws, it is complaint-driven.
That's the right word.
So it's not that it's not regulated, it's not that it is not monitored, but we don't have the staff to drive around the whole city every day and make sure everybody is complying with all the conditions of their zoning or their conditional uses. However, when a complaint comes in to either the mayor's office or the planning department or the code enforcement office, then an investigation is done and the regulations are enforced if any of the applicable regulations are not being complied with.
Thank you. Mr. White?
I'll give you an example, because I'm one of those that calls, code enforcement does not like me. I call them. And give you an example, at the end of my street is Lakewood Elementary. The neighbor decided they were going to cut down the no parking signs, which they did. I called code enforcement. Code enforcement called the North Little Rock Police. The next day, the signs were back up. So they do react, but they would have never known those signs were cut down if I didn't call them. But they do enforce, because those signs are back up to protect those kids.
So basically, you're saying to the community as a whole, not harassment, but we have to be vigilant about what's going on in our neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Y'all heard that,
Thank
right?
you.
Thank y'all. Thank you for your time and thank you for
Ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'm hoping this helps, but we've had a business in Central Arkansas for 36 years, since 1986. I've lived in Central Arkansas since 1978. We've had 0 code violations in any of our buildings ever. And this is the 5th or 6th facility here in Central Arkansas. We've got 2 in Northwest Arkansas and 1 in Hot Springs that do other businesses. We comply to codes, we comply to rules. We don't operate a successful business over that period of time and have the employees that we have that trust us if we don't do the right thing. So we welcome you to watch and do that, but I don't think you'll have any problem with us. We follow the rules. We want to be a good employer. We want to be a good neighbor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? On the application, please call the roll.
Banks? Chambers?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Pierce? Wallace?
No.
White?
Yes.
And Chairman Clifton.
Yes. The application was approved. See Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what to do next. Thank you. Mr. Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 6C, SD 2023-54, Ace Glass, Lot 1, preliminary plat and site plan review at 100 Campbell Road, preliminary plat and site plan review to allow development of a multi-phased recycling facility. The applicant was present and agreed to items 1 through 18 and subsections, and the Development Review Committee recommends approval.
Motion made and seconded that this application be approved as submitted. Is there any comments from anyone in the audience? Mr. White?
The leader of the group, do y'all have a copy of this? Okay, when it's over, I'd like to give you a copy on what we're about, because we're requiring trees, we're requiring sidewalks, all sorts of items on there that they have to do, because they've already agreed that they would do that. But I think y'all need to be aware of what is being required by the Planning Commission for them to have to follow through.
Mr. Foster?
Let me amplify Mr. White's comment there. This is taken very seriously by every department in the city. When the applicant comes in with these plans, they're distributed to the fire marshal, the building codes, wastewater, Central Arkansas Water, North Rock Electric. I know I'm forgetting somebody. They are the ones that develop this list, and the planning department and planning staff enforce this list. Just wanted to give you a little background. These are taken very seriously.
Okay, any other comments on the application?
He has one.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am, come to the mic.
And tell them the reason why they're being recorded, so they know.
The reason we're doing this is everything is being recorded.
Okay, that's fine. Again, the name is Willie B. Burnett. And basically what you all are telling us, we've lost our neighborhood. Now we got a business area, correct?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
That's not correct.
Okay. So what are you telling us?
What I'm telling you is.
Because see, I know how the thing works. Once we call so many times, the code officer, the code inspector, they're gonna come out, and then they're gonna get tired of us, and then they're just not gonna come at all, and then everything is just gonna fall apart. That's life. That's why we want our neighborhood to stay a neighborhood and not have to deal with this. And I have nothing against them. Whatever they can do is whatever they can do. But we wanted our neighborhood to stay a neighborhood where we can have our children's play and not worry about them.
Yes, ma'am.
Our grandchildren's play and not worry about them. Now we got a business in the neighborhood. We got to keep an eye on our children's, our grandchildren's. That's what that's our purpose.
Okay, thank you for your comments, ma'am. Any other comments from commissioners? On the application, please call the roll. No.
This is
I'm
all
sorry.
in favor. All in favor of the committee report.
All in favor of the subdivision application? Go ahead and call the roll on it, please.
Banks? Chambers?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Yes.
Wallace? White?
Yes.
And Chairman Clifton.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We will move back into our regular agenda. At this time, we'll hear special use case number 2023-22, special use to allow a type 2 non-owner occupied. Yes, that if you'd like to stay with us, you're welcome to stay. If you would like to exit now, we will give a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, thank you. To allow special use,
Mr. Clifton, could I just suggest that if people are going to visit, that they do it away from the doors or we get the doors shut so that this applicant isn't disturbed?
officer, would you please ask them? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here for our application for the special use for the non-owner occupied unit at 605.
Give us your name, please.
My name is Paul Kreth,
And
and
I'm Stacy Pendergrast.
Okay. You have come before the Design Review Committee. Do you have a copy of the recommendations from that committee?
I do
Do
here.
y'all agree with all the recommendations?
Yes.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? Yes, please come forward and give us your name, please. Yes, sir.
My name's Bob Ragsdale, and I live right around the corner from that house with my wife. And I don't know if I'm for this or against it, and I think I have a question about what we're afraid of in our neighborhood is outside developers coming in and just buying us all out and losing our neighborhood. And I know we're gonna learn more about it tonight, but my question is there a limit on how many of these short-term rentals you're gonna allow in our neighborhood right up there? That's my only question.
Mr. Spencer, can you answer that question for us?
I can semi-answer. I can't guarantee you on a number on your neighborhood, but our short-term rental ordinance limits the total number of short-term rentals within the city of North Little Rock to 1% of the number of households. So in some places, they may be more densely populated than others because it's a citywide percentage. However, with such a low percentage, I would not anticipate your neighborhood being bought out by out-of-state investors, turning it into a short-term rental neighborhood.
Thank you.
But there was a council person suggested to us, what about a short-term rental district? And we didn't like that idea at all.
That's not a part of the city's ordinances, and so while there may be a council member that is in favor of that, that is not a part of our current regulations on short-term rentals, and that'd have to be something to amend our ordinance and be brought to the city council. So that's not the case as we are right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is George Collins. I live at 218 West 6, just right around the corner. And I'm concerned that we're getting way too many rentals in Argenta. We have several already. I have 5 grandkids, 6 and under. And I'm getting concerned about how many non-owner residents we have. And I'd like y'all just to vote no on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Collins.
Go ahead.
Sir, are you against rentals in general or short-term rentals? So, okay, you weren't clear on that. You were saying all rentals. Okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what you were saying. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Patrick Stair, and I live at 411 West 5th Street. I am opposed to the application to allow a Type 2 non-owner occupied short-term rental at 605 and 605 1/2 Orange Street. I have no problem with Type 1 owner-occupied STRs because the owner lives in the building and is a neighbor. But this application being considered is fraught with danger. In requesting approval for the arrangement of having both long-term and short-term rentals approved for both units, it would be far too easy to slide into a condition where the owner did not live there. In addition, it would be far too easy for this arrangement to morph into a condition with 2 short-term rental units operating simultaneously. The City of North Little Rock does not have a compliance mechanism in place that can provide sufficient assurance that this will not happen. In their cover letter, the applicants speak of long-term benefits to the community. I am unimpressed by statements of any long-term benefit provided to a residential neighborhood by a non-owner occupied STR. I am, however, acutely aware of the long-term detriments to neighborhoods that have been described by many. These frequently include negative effects on the stock of affordable housing, leading to difficulties experienced by workers in finding housing. I've heard officials from Eureka Springs describe the effects of STRs on housing supplies in their city, as long-term rental units and regular long-term housing units have been converted to STRs, forcing local workers to move farther and farther from their jobs and even going to neighboring towns. This effect has been described in numerous places. Airbnb and VRBO like to say that STRs contribute to vacation rental opportunities and thus contribute to increased tourism, but academic research doesn't necessarily agree and frequently finds that STRs merely substitute for standard hotel rentals. Airbnb and VRBO and others like to say that STRs contribute money to the local economy, but on closer inspection, we can see that STRs take money away from providers of local services and products and funnel it to the property owners. This is not surprising. How many vacationers at an STR are going to use the services of the local veterinary clinic, car repair shop, drug, grocery, or department store? How many lawyers, doctors, dentists, and chiropractors will be hired by STR renters? How many churches, community theaters, food pantries, or city commissions will be supported by STR renters? Communities around the world have been hollowed out by the replacement of neighbors with short-term renters. I do not want to see this happen in my neighborhood. Please reject this application.
Thank you, Mr. Stair. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Becky Ragsdale. I live at 216 West 6th Street. My husband Bob and I have lived there for 17 years. We've had a short-term rental behind us the entire time we've lived here. We've had ongoing problems with it I won't go into today, but we've witnessed all sorts of crimes. So we're opposed to short-term rentals. And we don't mind owner-occupied short-term rentals because the owner's there to govern and watch over their property. And when they're not owner-occupied, we feel there's a risk for damage to your neighbors. But I'm getting off track here. My concern is this property is a duplex. It's got a large living area downstairs and 2 smaller units upstairs. So it's a combination of 4 units. So this means 3 units in this building will be short-term rentals, and only 1 of them will be owner-occupied. And what's to stop them from then becoming, moving out?
Ms. Fields?
I just want to provide a point of clarification. I understand that there are 2 addresses on the property, and there are actually 4 living units. This application only applies to 1/2 of the unit and only allows 1 short-term rental within any of the 4 units and only at 605 Orange Street. So there's not a possibility of having 4 short-term rentals there. It would be limited to 1. And again, as to your concerns for enforcement, so much of what we do, because we don't have the staff to drive around all day, every day is complaint-driven. And
And we've
Councilmember
done that.
Ross, in working for a whole lot of months on this ordinance, you know, really has striven, and the city has striven to make sure that there are conditions in there to where if it is problematic to the neighbors, any particular short-term rental, that the city has a mechanism to revoke the business license.
And I read it, and it's very well written. She did a good job, and I like everything she's done with it. My point is, it's a 4-unit building. They're conjoined, and 3 of those, because the people that are owner-occupied on one side have a short-term rental upstairs, and then they're applying for short-term rental upstairs and downstairs on non-owner-occupied in their unit. So that's 3 out of the 4 units are going to be short-term rentals.
That's, and I appreciate your concerns, ma'am, but that just is absolutely not correct. Only 1 unit pursuant to this application even has the possibility of legally being a short-term rental.
So their downstairs will not be a short-term rental, only their upstairs?
It could be either the downstairs or the upstairs, but either way, it could only be
Okay,
one
because the
unit.
way I read it, it was both of them.
No,
That
just
they were
one
looking
unit.
for both of them to be non-owner occupied.
No,
Okay,
just
the-
one unit.
The last thing that I'm gonna say is that short-term rentals destroy your neighborhoods. And what happens when you do your census? When the census takers come in, you lose your federal funding. When they come in and you've got a majority, and that's what the state of Arizona found out. They had the most blanket laws to allow short-term rentals everywhere, and that's what they found out. And one of the reasons they backed off their short-term rental policies was because they lost a lot of federal funding through the census. And that's just something to consider. And right now, I know we have at least 17 rentals in Argenta. We're not that big. And we have 17 short-term rentals already. So my vote is no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name's Charlie Hart. I live at 623 Orange, across the alley from the applicant. The letter I received said that both the upstairs and the downstairs are both going to be short-term rentals. Has that been altered from what the original plan was?
They live in one of them right now. If they ever move out, they could still only use one of the units at 605 because the other side of it has a different address. Only one of the units could be used as a short-term rental. Now, it would be up to them whether it would be the upstairs or the downstairs. In that event. The other one would have to be a long-term rental, period. Only one unit. Now, they've not identified which one and have asked in their application that in the event that they move out of the premises, that then they have an option to have one a long-term rental, and, you know, which unit it would be, but only one unit could be a short-term rental, and Ms. James is nodding to me that is correct, and that's how this is written up. And if the Planning Commission recommends approval, then this will have to go to City Council, because again, they're just a recommending body. And I can tell you that because I review all the legislation, that would be a condition of an ordinance approving the special use for this short-term rental, that on this property, only one unit could ever be a short-term rental under this special use.
So for clarification, if the downstairs unit was short-term, the upstairs would have to be long-term.
Correct.
And then
Or vice versa.
2 years later, could it reverse and be the opposite way? Where the upstairs is short-term and the downstairs is long-term?
Yes,
It could go back and forth?
yes,
It can change?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. But not ever 2 short-term rentals at the same time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Any comments from any of the commissioners? Mr. Chambers?
Yes, just as a point of clarification, I'm a neighbor. Number one, I totally oppose the squishy nature, okay? I might possibly vote yes if they would pick the studio apartment as a short-term rental, and that's what they did. I really don't like the maybe yes, maybe no, maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know how I feel this month. Golly, what do you think? I don't like that squishy nature. We vote on black and white issues. We rarely vote on squishy things. And if the applicant wishes to pick a unit, I'm happy to vote one way or the other. But I consider short-term rentals to be devastating to a neighborhood. They remove the glue that holds a neighborhood together, okay? You can never call on your neighbor for a jump because you don't know who they are or if they're even there. You know, was it rented this month or not? You can't ask your neighbor to borrow a cup of sugar because you don't know if they're there or not. It removes the glue that holds our neighborhood together. We approved a short-term rental across the street from Mr. Hart. There's a short-term rental 2 doors down from Mr. Hart. He lives next door to an abandoned house that if it was renovated would likely be a short-term rental. And next to that one is a current short-term rental. And it is just wrong to focus the 1% of the city's total housing population in one neighborhood. And because we're such a nice neighborhood, so close to downtown Little Rock and the conventions and the entertainment and everything, I foresee that of our 225 housing units in Argenta, that a lot of them will be short-term rental, and I don't see any protection of the city council to keep Argenta as a family-friendly neighborhood and not just a business enterprise that's all hotel units, which is what we're becoming.
Right, and I do not have a dog in this hunt, clearly. I don't have a vote, I don't get one, that's not my job, but the one thing that I would like to say is that's why we go through this special use process, because different neighborhoods are different. And so those are absolutely considerations that this planning commission can take into account when making their recommendations to the city council. And the other thing that I would like to say is that based on your comments, it may be, you know, that the applicants at this time would wish to amend their application in the hopes of maybe getting some more votes or not, you know, and again, I don't know how you all vote. It is, that is up to you all. That's your job, but they may wish to amend their application to only be considered to have the smaller unit upstairs be the one that's allowed as a short-term rental. And again, that's up to them. That's their application. But if you all wanted to do that, we could impose that condition, and it might give you a little better chance of getting a positive recommendation.
Ms. Pierce?
I own the property next door to you, and I'm concerned about the parking. So if y'all are there, you have 2 cars, and you have 2 people coming in, where are they gonna park?
Okay, so that is part of the consideration for being able to do either or. It calls for you to have off-street parking for short-term rentals. So the downstairs unit, it would be very awkward to tell somebody upstairs that they're gonna park in that driveway. So that's why the flexibility needs to play in order for us to be able to deal with the regulations. I happen to think it brings the value of the properties up. People may disagree. We spend a lot of money on that property, as you can go back and look at the records and see. And part of it is because we thought we had the flexibility with the units to be able to do with as we please. But we've got 1 parking spot inside the garage, which I'm in the process of cleaning out now. And there's 2 other cars that can fit in the driveway. So we don't have a problem with off-street parking, and we'd like to keep our application as it is.
So whoever is visiting would park in the driveway behind your car in the garage?
That's the intent, correct. And we'd have to work that out. So that's part of the regulations that are here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chambers?
I would like to say something. I haven't gotten a
Yes,
chance to
ma'am.
say anything. There is a different worldview now. It's a different world now. I work 100% remotely. We do travel, and we use Airbnbs when we travel while we're working. And I think that it does bring a lot into the neighborhood. Across the street, next to Mr. Hart, the person who has bought the property got interested in Argenta because of staying in an Airbnb.
You're talking about this lady.
Yes, Mark and Paula Cardillo, when they also put forth a letter in support of our application. It does seem that people that are upset and fearful of the future seem to come out, but there's a lot of wonderful things that happen when people come in and they experience Argenta and they experience the neighborhood, and we are very good neighbors. We take good care of our property. We are going to have relationships with anyone that comes in. We have a relationship with the renter upstairs, and I don't see the need for fear in this instance.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Chairman, I move to change condition number 3 to read, only the studio apartment may be utilized as a short-term rental unit.
I think we would be opposed to that.
You're out of order, sir. I made the motion for the commission to second.
I hear you.
You'll get a chance to speak, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Chambers.
That's my motion.
Motion been made and seconded for item number 3 on the conditions to consider. Does all understand the motion?
That only the studio unit may be used as a short-term rental.
Yes. Yes.
I would like to keep the application the way it is. I mean, last night, there's a guy staying, he parked in front of Charlie's house. He's got a Ford 250. I had a long conversation with the guy. I had a longer conversation than I've ever had with you, Don. And he's a Airbnb person that's staying down the street. So this fear of thinking it's going to tear away from the neighborhood, I mean, there's quality people that come in and pay $150, $200 a night to stay in an Airbnb versus $59 in a hotel. I mean, it's hugely different. We don't plan on letting our property go downhill. And if there's a short-term renter, they're there short-term. And if they're a problem, they don't get to come back. Long-term renters that you've gotten there for 6 months or a year, you have a bigger problem with those people. So short-term rental adds to the quality in the neighborhood in our mind.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more thing to say, too.
We have a
Call for questions.
We have a motion on the floor. Question has been called. On the question, on the motion, please call the roll.
Banks? Chambers?
Yes.
Foster?
No.
Pierce?
I abstain.
Wallace? White? And Chairman Clifton?
Yes.
How many was that?
The motion failed.
That's what I thought. It just got 4 yes votes?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so your motion, Mr. Chambers, did fail to amend that condition.
On the application, the question has been called. Please call the roll.
Banks? Chambers?
No.
Foster?
Yes.
Pierce?
Abstain.
Wallace? Yes. White? No. And Chairman Clifton?
No.
Fails.
Again, your motion, the application failed. As I explained earlier, this is a recommending body. You can get an alderman to take it to the city council to try to present it to the city council at that time. All we are is a recommendation.
So we don't get a chance to talk to the city council?
Yes, sir, you will.
You will?
If you get an
Take
alderman to
testimony.
take it to the city council to sponsor it.
Give me a
Yeah.
call tomorrow.
Yeah.
Give me a call tomorrow.
You can appeal, and then it will be, even if you don't have a city council member that will sponsor your special use, then the mayor will put it on the agenda for consideration only. So you will, if you decide to appeal, which you have 30 days to do this negative recommendation,
From
you do
today?
have the ability to get before the city council and make your case to them.
Okay, so hopefully I can get the city attorney's name and number from you as well.
Okay,
That is
thank
me,
you.
Sammy Fields, and I'm on the website, and I don't have a card with me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But if you call Donna at planning, and I'm happy to speak with you as well, but as far as the appeal process, she's your lady that can help you with that, okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay, number 2 is special use case number 2023. Special use to allow a type 2 non-owner occupied short-term rental at 305 West A Avenue in an R2 zoning district. Yes, give us your name, please.
My name is Stephen Smith. This is my wife, Josie.
Josie Smith.
And we operate a short-term rental at 305 West F and would like to get permission to continue doing so. We've improved the property immensely. I mean, I hear you guys saying that, I don't know, I don't want to get too defensive off the bat here, but I just saw what just went down. So I hear y'all saying that, you know, it brings neighborhoods down and this and that, but we've made a real effort to, I mean, this property was almost a junkyard. You could really argue it. You can see it in some of the aerial photos. I don't know if y'all have these here or not, but there's stuff everywhere. We've really made it one of the nicest, if not, in our opinion, the nicest house on the street. And we've, in the process, you know, met each of the neighbors on both sides, across the street and behind the house, let them know what we're doing. We've had nothing but positive reactions from neighbors and, you know, our guests, of course. They've given us really positive reactions too.
You have been before the Design Review Committee. Have you saw the conditions for consideration?
Yes.
Do you agree with those?
Yes, we do.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application?
I've got a question, Mr.
Ms.
Clifton.
Fields?
I'm sorry. I spoke to Council Member Ross yesterday. You all are in a restricted parking district, and Council Member Ross had driven by the house. It requires that the driveway be paved, and it looks to her, and I have not seen it myself, but like some of the paving has worn away and it's gravel now, and gravel's not allowed in the restricted parking districts. So I do think that that is a concern of Council Member Ross's, that be a condition that y'all pave that driveway.
Well, I mean, it is paved.
Okay.
About half
And
of it is
like I
paved.
said, I
The
haven't.
back of the house has gravel.
The
towards
back,
Okay. Will the number of cars that are needed to park there be able to park on the paved portion?
yes.
Okay.
And that's visible in the site plan that we submitted. At the last meeting, you guys asked for a site plan, and we submitted a site plan. I don't know. Yeah, that's not it. Oh, you don't have it? Well, we've got it. I don't know if you want to see it or not, but.
Yeah, I asked for it, so.
Okay. Sure.
I was just bringing that up because regardless of how this goes, you will have to go to city council to get this approved. And so that is one of our council members' concerns about this particular
I don't think it was in this one. It was in those documents that I asked. Put them in here.
While they're looking,
This is it.
may I ask Ms. James a question?
Mr. Chambers?
Ms. James, how many short-term rentals are in this neighborhood? I will always ask this question.
As far as folks who have come in that requested a special use within this area, this is the first one. Now, you do have a couple that's coming up on your next agenda.
On that site plan, sir, the concrete portion is right in line with the front of the house. So it's about 49 and a half feet from the curb to the end of the concrete portion. And then it turns to kind of chip rock gravel, which is still a very adequate surface, in our opinion, to drive on and park on. But that's 49 and a half feet. That's more than enough room to park two large vehicles back to back, which is the the
Right,
recommendation.
the requirement is on-site, and you can't count the public right-of-way as being on your site.
Oh,
So the
okay.
critical number is 37 feet,
Okay,
or, no, excuse me, 32 and a half feet,
okay.
which is about 8 feet short of being 2 full parking places by our regulations, okay? So that may come up whenever you're at city council. Just be advised. There you go.
Question, I heard you say that the right-of-way cannot be counted as a parking space. Is that correct?
That's what I said.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah, so if there's a sidewalk there, assume the back of the sidewalk is the property line. So when it says off-street parking, it means you have to be parking on your property, not in the right-of-way.
Okay,
So you can't, half your car hangs over the sidewalk.
gotcha.
That wouldn't count as a parking spot.
Gotcha, okay. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? Any other comments from any commissioner? Mr. Foster?
Go ahead, go ahead. I mean, I do want to say something else about that.
Okay, Mr. Foster?
You know, I was hoping to speak on the previous application, but be it as it may, you know, I've had experience with these Airbnbs. My son owns a piece of property or a house on Lock Ridge, and next door is Airbnb. And there's been several folks come and go, and since I'm the one that maintains his property for him, but anyhow, I'm over there quite a bit, and I've got to meet a lot of the people who've, rented that piece of property from him, that house next door. And, I go over there and say, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Or, just trying to be neighborly. And this gentleman is the second time he had rented it in about 6 months. And he said to me, after I'd given him reference to restaurants and, other places, activities in the city, he came up to me and he came over and he needed to borrow something, and he says, I want to let you know, he said, I appreciate you being a good neighbor. And I said, well, I don't live here. And he says, I know that, but he said, we were planning on living in Maumelle. And he said, because of the people, not just you, but other people in your community here have been so neighborly, we're looking for a place in Lakewood to buy a resident. And I went, okay. And I thought to myself, well, if we turn these things down, we're losing an opportunity for us to be neighbors and be ambassadors for our city. Because that's what we want. We want these people to live and strive and play and work and that kind of thing. And, to limit these, I think we're losing the opportunity to be just, like I say, a good ambassador for the further development of our city and to, make those folks part of our neighborhood. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Any other comments? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I believe the officer had his hand up. Or for her.
For her.
Okay.
My name is Carolyn Singleton. I live on Dooley Road, and I like the idea of Airbnbs, but I don't like the idea in my neighborhood, I guess is the way you'd put it. But I would like for Park Hill to stay residential and not have traffic coming on a daily basis or a weekly basis or whatever. I realize and appreciate what you're saying about being a good neighbor and an ambassador. But at the same time, that's not going to happen that frequently. Not all people are going to want to move into the neighborhood. And I think it's disruptive for the residents who live in that neighborhood.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one more question.
What?
And you've answered this 8 times in 8 meetings, and we'll ask again. Short-term rental is how many days? Or is there 30 days? Thank you.
On the application, oh, yes, ma'am.
Hello. My name is Deb Reynolds. I live at 315 West F. My concern is the vetting. What kind of vetting do they have as far as references or just whatever, how do they know they're going to be okay? How do they know that they're not going to come in and trash the place and be gone the next day? How do they know that they're not going to have parties? You know, how many people are allowed in this one house? I understand, I believe it's a two-bedroom? Okay, a two-bedroom. Are they going to have 4 people there? Are they going to have 8 people there? Parking, yes, it is a single driveway. You park one after the other. I have seen some people park on the street. Park Hill is North Little Rock's historic district. I'd like to see it remain historic. What's the minimum age that you have set for short-term rental?
Okay, you'll have a chance to give your answers when she finishes.
So that's another concern. Are they going to lease or have a short-term rental for 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds? I don't know. What about the hours? Will there be certain hours, like they need to be in by 10 o'clock or whatever? You know, coming and going in the neighborhood. It's a quiet neighborhood. Are they going to be pulling in, pulling out? You know, I don't know. As far as a short-term rental owner, do they make their own rules, or are there a certain set of rules that should pertain to a short-term rental? And I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All good questions. Yes, sir. Could you, you had wanted to speak, can you address some of her concerns?
Yes, sir. My wife handles the management the day-to-day, so I'll let you go through those if you want to. Those are all great questions, but.
I can answer all those questions. We have a noise compliant rule.
Please.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a noise compliant rule of, from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. No loud noises, no parties. We don't have anything like that. We only allow 5 guests at a time in the house because it's a 2-bedroom with 2 king beds. So you can have 4, you know, 2 in each bedroom, and then we have a blow-up mattress for a child. So we have noise compliance. If they don't follow those rules, we reserve the right to kick them out. We have a Airbnb in Fayetteville, so we also have all these rules apply. But another, I'm trying to remember what the question you said. I'm a little nervous.
I can say.
Okay.
So she was asking about how do we vet the people?
Right.
People apply to rent the house, and then we look at them, and part of what we ask them is, what's your reason for staying here in North Little Rock? And we've gotten different things from visiting family members to, we hosted some tornado victims, which kind of goes to this, does fit a need for the community, for people who were out of their house for a month while their house was being repaired from the recent tornado. So we look at these people when they apply, and they've been reviewed. If they've ever stayed at an Airbnb before, the previous host reviews them and says, you know, Joe was a great guest. They were very compliant. I give them a 5-star rating. And then we can look and see how they were with their previous, and then they also review us, which is a reason for us to keep the house really nice, because we want to be really good hosts to them and also give them a really nice place to stay. So that goes back, and I believe Josie would know this, there are rules that Airbnb has that you have to be of a certain age to even be,
I believe it's 24.
yeah, to even be on the platform. So you're not going to have teenagers and that type of thing renting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And one more thing about the driveway. I was looking at, it's actually 5 feet longer. It's in line with the 19-foot wall, not the 12.5-foot wall. So I guess we would have 37.5 feet of paved down to the city's right-of-way, but, you know, well over 50 if you went all the way down to the curb for 2 parking places, plus the gravel in front.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White?
I have a question for y'all. Okay, first of all, you can put an age limit on it. You're allowed to do that. It doesn't break any laws on that, because I have an age limit on one that I have in Florida or Alabama. How far away do y'all live from this house?
We live in Sherwood.
So we pass it every day to work.
And I'm there a minimum of twice a week, taking the trash cans in and out. And then we've got, you know, cleaning people, and then Josie helps with the cleaning
And
sometimes.
I'm in there a few times a week as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? On the application, please call the roll.
Banks? Chambers?
No.
Foster?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Wallace?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
And Chairman Clifton.
Yes. Your application did pass. You can see Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what to do next. Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is number 3, rezone case number 2023-15, a rezoning from an R2 to an R3 to allow development of a duplex at number 9 Martin Drive. Is the applicant here? Give us your name, please.
Thank you for letting us be here. My name's Gardner, A.R. Gardner. This is Julie Watson. We're both members of the Levy Church of Christ. And between the two of us, we oversee the Levy Senior Housing. We've got 4 nice brick duplexes there. It's been built over several years, about 20 years back when we started. And I got 1 frame unit that's on the other side of the street at number 16. We've been able to acquire number 9 Martin Drive and would like to develop it into another nice brick single-story duplex, be a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom unit. And the whole building will be about 2,000 square feet with a little bit less in the 1-bedroom than it is a 2-bedroom. They're nice units, and we lease them, not lease them, but rent them to members of the church, specifically the congregation there at Levy. And if there's not anybody at Levy that wants them right at that time, it's other congregations in the area that may put in an application.
Over age 55.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, truthfully, it's 64, but that's true. These are senior houses, senior saints housing.
Okay. Have they met notification requirements? Yes, sir. Has there been any opposition? Other than this? Okay. Okay, someone would like to speak against this application, please come forward and give us your name, please.
My name's Jackie Armstrong, and I'm the owner of 10 Martin Drive, which is next door to the empty lot at 9 Martin. And then there's also it's a single-family house, and on the other side of 9 Martin is 8 Martin. It goes 10, 9, 8. The numbers are in sequence in that area, and it is also a single-family house. They tore down the single-family house that was at 9 Martin in order to apply for the duplex. Martin Drive is a horseshoe-shaped street with entrances on both ends of the street onto Camp Robinson. You can see it in the picture there. It goes all the way around. The homes on our end of the street are all single-family homes. There's about 5 homes in our section. I am concerned about the noise level and the privacy issues of having a duplex with many people close to my house. There would be required parking for a minimum of 4 cars, so the increase in traffic on this narrow, curved area of Martin Drive would prove dangerous. The concrete frontage for parking will only create more runoff towards Camp Robinson, which already has problems in these heavy rains. Depending on the design of this duplex, it could potentially affect my property value. And he also mentioned that they were going to build a single-story two apartment-type houses. And that puts their house like 6 feet from my house. The houses there have very short frontage because they're long and narrow. They were built in the 1950s as military housing, and we know our neighbors. There's no guarantee that the Church of Christ will not sell this property in the future. And I noticed in the little packet of pages that you had over on the table there about this short-term rentals and all that you talked about, to preserve the character of our section. And I want to preserve the character of our section of Martin Drive by just having it a single family and not be rezoned into an R3. My hope is that you will vote against the rezoning of this property from an R2 to an R3. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. I have a question for the applicant. How many homes do y'all own on this circle?
Say the question one more time, please.
How many homes do you own already on Martin Drive?
There's 4 duplexes, so that's 8 living units.
We own
Yes, but
5. We own the house as well. And we own the house that we tore down, so we had 6.
so there is 5 duplexes there now?
4 duplexes in one house.
One
Okay.
house.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And could I address one of her concerns?
Yes, ma'am, please.
About the possibility of selling? We have been there, the church has been there for 70 years. So there is not much chance because we own most of the property in that circle and on back up to the apartments behind us. So there is very, very little possibility that we would ever sell that. And we have many applicants, members of the church, waiting for this, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Pierce?
Is it possible for new construction to build 6 feet away from a house? I thought you had to have so many feet.
There's
Well,
city setbacks.
It's dependent on how wide your lot is.
10%
Ms.
of
Pierce,
lot
it
width.
would have to meet today's ordinances. So no matter what construction, or, you know, if it's single family or duplex or a triplex, it's still going to have the same setbacks as a single family on this property. So it's typically going to be 6 foot on each side, so, 12 foot. But our regulations is somewhere between 6 and 8.
Okay.
Based on the width of the lot. So, and that would repeat on the other property too, so there would be a 12-foot distance minimum.
Ms. Armstrong, have you had any problems with any of the other duplexes on the street?
No, sir, we haven't, but to put in perspective, the way the street curves, we have our little section, and then it curves up to their part, which runs into the church, and then comes back down to what is now a big empty lot where they have the parking lot and tore down a house that was there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? Any comments from any of the commissioners? On the application, please call the roll.
Banks? Yes. Chambers?
No.
Foster?
Yes.
Phillips? Pierce?
Yes.
Wallace? Yes. White? No. And Chairman Clifton?
Yes, your application was approved. See Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what to do next. Thank you. Ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
When they present, Mr. Well, I'm supposed to address you, excuse me. When they present their site plan, is that for public to comment on the site plan, or is it just a?
No, what's before you is a rezoning. Has
Right,
nothing
I
to
know
do with
that.
a building or a site plan.
Right.
So there would be no public notice or a hearing, there would be no need for it because it would be allowed. That'd be just like if you were wanting to build a single family on a single family lot, you wouldn't have to notice the neighbors because it's allowed.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Spencer, will this be site plan review?
No, a duplex does
Allowed
not,
use.
yeah.
Got it, okay.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is rezone 2023-15, a rezoning from an R2 to an R3. Number 4A, conditional use 2023-8, Galloway Industrial Park Edition, Lot 2, a conditional use to allow outdoor storage at 2901 Harris Road. Is the applicant here? Please come forward. One left.
We outlasted Thomas.
John Pownell with Thomas Engineering. We are asking for a special use for outdoor storage. This will just be in the south, conditional use, I'm sorry, conditional use, and this will just be for the south part of this lot that it's abuts the railroad there.
Okay. Have you reviewed the conditions to consider?
Yes,
You agree with those?
yes, sir.
Thank you. Has there been any opposition for this application? Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners? On the application as submitted, please call the roll.
Banks? Yes. Chambers?
I guess, yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Wallace?
Yes.
White? And Chairman Clifton.
Yes, your application was approved. See Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what to do next. Mr. Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 4B, SD 2023-52, Galloway Industrial Park Edition, Lot 2, preliminary plat, site plan review at 2901 Harris Road. Preliminary plat to allow creation of 2 lots and site plan review to allow development of 5 warehouse buildings in 2 phases. The applicant was present, agreed to items 1 through 13 and subsections, and the Design Review Committee recommends approval.
Second. Motion made and seconded. This application be approved as submitted. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners on the application? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The next item is item number 5, subdivision 2023-53, Mr. Chambers. And let me excuse myself, and I'll turn the chair over to Mr. White.
Item number 5, SD 2023-53, Clifton Henry Addition, lots 1 and 2, preliminary plat and site plan review at 7901 Highway 70. Preliminary plat to allow the creation of 2 lots and site plan review to allow the placement of a 6,000 square foot, 1-story metal building. Applicant was present, agreed to items 1 through 15 and subsections, and the Development Review Committee recommends approval.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any of the commissioners like to speak on this? Anyone from the, oh, yes, sir.
I would like to speak on, let me see, that is number 6E. It says provide Board of Zoning Adjustment line front yard fence. I believe that is not a requirement, but if you could add just one sentence in there to say if required, if we could just say that if required, because I don't think it's going to be required because this is it's an existing building, so we don't have to go to the Board of Adjustment to get existing building rezoned. So if you just put if required on that.
Okay, do we have a motion to add that?
I move to add if required.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this? I'm confused. All right, in that case, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now we're public comment.
Move to adjourn.
I have a public comment. Sorry.
You can talk while.
He spoke the whole day. So anyway, on these short-term leases, I'm just totally against any of them that's unoccupied. But, you know, they you know, it made sense, but I go back to what Mr. Chambers said, it's never gonna be regulated. I mean, these people lived in Sherwood, and they may come by every day, but at night, 11 o'clock, they're not gonna drive by the house to see if there's a party going on. Because I own one of these, and we have a policeman that checks on it, because it's a condo. But it's just real hard to regulate this. So I think when we have these in front of us, we really need to think before we pass or whatever. And I have to agree, which I don't always, but I think this will hurt a lot of neighborhoods if it gets down to. I wish the alderman would have said maybe 1% per.
Census tract.
Yeah, to area, you know, like 1% could be in Indian Hills, 1% in Lakewood, stuff like that, instead of all of it being in one area. So I just hope we really, because I thought this would just be a no-brainer deal, but there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
I think,
on that.
Mr. White, that they're going to end up amending the ordinance again, just to, because after a year, you're going to see things you missed. And I hope that when they do, they'll amend it to 1% of the housing per census tract. That way, it all won't happen to Argenta or Lakewood. And Mr. White, how the heck are they going to enforce well, maybe we'll